Have you ever wondered what secrets are hidden behind the walls of the Vatican? As well as being the center of Catholicism, the Vatican is also known for its involvement in global issues that go far beyond its religious influence. What evidence there is suggests that the Vatican is not just a spiritual entity, but a powerful global force with political connections that can affect world governance and the unification of religions. We will question what is officially presented. You'll see what's really hidden behind the imposing Vatican walls, analyzing the lesser-known and often undiscussed aspects of this powerful state. If you're curious about how a small city-state can wield so much power and influence in the world, this is the video you can't afford to miss. Before we continue, I ask you to make sure you're already subscribed to the channel. Every week you'll see revealing videos that will change your view of the world today. The Vatican stands out not only as a spiritual center, but also as the world's smallest sovereign state, full of significant art and history. The official language is Latin, and its facilities house an impressive collection that includes St. Peter's Basilica and the vast Vatican museums, which hold some 70,000 works by renowned masters such as Raphael and Michelangelo. These works are not mere decorations. They are visual testimonies to the Vatican's historical influence and power. In addition to its artistic splendor, the Vatican maintains one of the oldest military forces still in operation, the Swiss Guard, established in 1500 and famous for its colorful Renaissance-style uniforms. Despite its small geographical area, the Vatican exerts a global influence, operating with a level of secrecy rarely seen in other states. The Vatican's financial structure is also intriguing, with financial transactions and decisions that are rarely exposed to public scrutiny. This raises several questions. How can such a small state maintain such influence? What is the Vatican's real impact on world politics? When considering these aspects, it becomes clear that the Vatican uses its unique position to maintain and expand its power, while maintaining an external image of a peaceful religious state. The complexity of this duality reflects the intriguing relationships between religion and power on the world stage. Despite its religious stature, the Vatican is steeped in mysteries and scandals that transcend its tranquil appearance. This place, which attracts millions of faithful from all over the world, serves as more than a spiritual center. It is an epicenter of power that influences global decisions and historical events of great magnitude. Over the years, various events at the Vatican have raised suspicions that things are not as transparent as they seem. For example, the existence of secret documents, hidden political deals, and the alleged influence on elections and international politics are points that often come up in discussions about its true nature. In addition, the Vatican has been the scene of numerous financial scandals and accusations of corruption that question its integrity and transparency. These events are not mere conspiracy theories, but situations with real and profound implications, which are often covered up by a curtain of closely guarded secrets. This duality between sacred and profane, between transparency and secrecy, defines the Vatican in ways that many outside its walls may not fully understand. The Vatican's ability to maintain its power and influence while facing internal and external criticism is testimony to its institutional complexity and the delicate balance it needs to maintain. As I have already said, the Vatican is deeply rooted in global structures that shape world politics and economics. The Vatican's presence in international organizations such as the World Bank, the World Health Organization, and Interpol suggests a network of influence that goes far beyond its spiritual functions. This influence is strategic. The Vatican has been working not only to strengthen its position in world affairs, but also to advance an agenda of religious unification. This goal may seem noble at first glance, but it raises questions about the role of the major religions on the global political stage and the potential creation of a unified world religion. Furthermore, the ideology that permeates these actions often reflects a complex web of objectives, which includes the dissemination of a doctrine that goes beyond the spiritual. The issue of global governance and the dismantling of national borders are recurring themes, suggesting a movement towards a supranational state that could theoretically be led by unified religious ideals. Discussing these connections and ideologies is vital to understanding not only the power of the Vatican, but also the ethical and moral implications of its influence on global politics. It is important to question and understand the motivations behind these actions and their viability in a diverse and multifaceted world. The Vatican, throughout its history, has been associated with various doctrines and beliefs, some of which challenge the traditional Christian narrative. One of these intriguing concepts is the Gnostic myth, which presents an alternative vision of the biblical figure of God. In this myth, the biblical God is described as being divided into two: a supreme and benevolent Father God, who is unknown, and the Demiurge, a creator God considered evil, who would have created the material world in which we live, seen as a prison for humanity. This Gnostic narrative proposes that within every human being there is a divine spark, a spirit that longs to escape from this material world and return to the true God. Interestingly, Lucifer is portrayed in this tradition not as the devil or Satan, but as a bringer of light, the messenger who brings knowledge and enlightenment to free humanity from this material prison. This point of view offers a totally different perspective on the duality between good and evil as traditionally perceived in Christianity. It also raises questions about the representation and interpretation of spiritual figures within the framework of religious power. How does the Vatican position itself in relation to these alternative and heretical interpretations of the Bible? This leads us to question the Church's flexibility and openness in the face of interpretations that challenge established dogma. The implication of these beliefs in the context of the Vatican's power and influence is profound, as it suggests a complexity in doctrine that is rarely discussed openly. These alternative narratives challenge not only Christian theology, but also the Vatican's authority as guardian of spiritual truth, calling into question the legitimacy of its interpretations and mandates. Your opinion is very important to us. Comment below what you think of this content. Do you have any questions? The Institute for Works of Religion, better known as the Vatican Bank, is one of the most enigmatic and controversial institutions associated with the Holy See. Founded in 1942, this bank is known as much for its high profitability as for the cloak of secrecy that surrounds its operations. Paying returns that often exceed 12% per year, the Vatican Bank has attracted attention not only for its financial efficiency, but also for the suspicions surrounding its activities. Historically, the Vatican Bank has been a pivot in numerous financial scandals, from accusations of money laundering to alleged connections with the Italian mafia. The absence of transparency in its operations and the lack of external audits provide fertile ground for speculation and concern. This raises the critical question: how does an institution under the aegis of one of the world's leading religious bodies repeatedly become embroiled in such deep controversies? One of the most notorious cases associated with the Vatican Bank was the 1982 death of Roberto Calvi, known as God's banker. Calvi was found hanged under Dominican's Bridge in London, with bricks in his pockets and an orange rope, a scenario that suggests a macabre ritual or a ciphered message. Before his death, Calvi was at the center of a financial fraud ring involving the Vatican Bank and Banco Ambrosiano, one of the largest private banks in Italy at the time. His death has never been satisfactorily explained and continues to be a focal point of conspiracy theories and investigations. In addition to the scandals, the Vatican Bank is known for its extensive investment portfolio, which spans several sectors and countries. It owns agricultural land, is involved in insurance, and holds shares in various industrial and technological companies. This diversification of investments reflects a sophistication and strategic approach that contrasts sharply with the Vatican's public image as purely spiritual and uninterested in worldly profits. The Vatican Bank's ability to keep its operations largely secret raises significant concerns about governance and accountability. The existence of such a powerful and opaque bank within a sovereign state that is simultaneously a global religious authority is unique and problematic. This arrangement creates a complex ethical and moral challenge, and answers to these questions are crucial to understanding the Vatican's role in the financial world and beyond. Scrutiny of the Vatican Bank is more than a matter of financial curiosity. It is a necessary examination of the intersection between faith, power, and money. How can we reconcile these shady financial operations with the teachings of transparency and ethics that the Vatican promotes? The answer to this question is fundamental to understanding not only the operation of the Vatican Bank, but also the nature of the influence the Vatican exerts on the world stage. The Vatican does not operate in isolation. It is woven into a complex web of power and influence that transcends national borders and economic sectors. The Vatican's connections extend beyond spiritual spheres, delving deep into the realms of global politics and finance, revealing an institution that plays a far more pragmatic and calculating role on the world stage than many may realize. This network of power is not just about direct influence. It is also about establishing strategic alliances and participating in decisions that shape global governance. The Vatican maintains diplomatic relations with almost every country in the world and actively participates in international organizations, using its unique position to influence issues from human rights to climate change. In addition, the Vatican uses its influence to mediate international conflicts and facilitate dialogues between states at odds. This facet of mediation not only elevates its status as a moral power, but also solidifies its relevance as an influential non-state actor in international relations. Examples of this include its mediation in historical disputes in Latin American countries and its position in peace negotiations in the Middle East. However, this web of influence is not free from criticism. The Vatican is sometimes seen as a state that uses its moral authority in ways that serve its own strategic interests, navigating through the turbulent waters of world geopolitics with a skill that contradicts its purely religious image. Accusations of involvement in money laundering and other illicit financial activities only add a layer of complexity to its public perception. The Vatican's ability to maintain such a broad and multifaceted influence raises important questions about the separation of church and state, especially in a world that values secularization and government transparency. The Vatican's role as both a state and a religious entity offers a unique window into the interaction between faith and power, showing that the Vatican's actions are often a reflection of political considerations as much as spiritual ones. Scrutinizing these actions is crucial to understanding not only the Vatican's role in global politics, but also the impact its decisions have on millions of faithful around the world. The challenge for the Vatican is to maintain its moral authority while navigating the complexities of global governance, a balance that remains a central theme in the discussion about its position in the contemporary world. The case of Roberto Calvi, known as God's banker, is one of the most mysterious and controversial episodes linked to the Vatican. In June 1982, Calvi was found dead in London, hanging under Dominican's Bridge with bricks in his pockets and an orange rope tied around his neck, in a scenario that many interpreted as a murder disguised as a suicide. Calvi was the president of Banco Ambrosiano, which had close links with the Vatican Bank and was at the center of a money laundering scandal involving huge sums of money and murky connections with the mafia. Calvi's death raised numerous questions about the Vatican's financial operations and its involvement in activities beyond the boundaries of ethics and legality and religiosity. The investigations pointed to a complex web of financial relationships between the Vatican Bank, Banco Ambrosiano, and various criminal organizations. This web of intrigue suggests an overlap of interests between the religious sphere and the underworlds of organized crime, challenging the Vatican's public image as a purely spiritual and ethical institution. Furthermore, the case highlighted the existence of a power structure within the Vatican that operates with its own codes and logic, often alien to the moral principles it preaches. The Vatican's involvement in such financial scandals not only tarnishes its reputation, but also raises profound questions about the integrity and transparency of its internal operations. The impact of this event was so significant that it led to changes in the Vatican Bank's policies and management, but many argue that these changes were superficial and that the culture of secrecy and questionable operations continue. The Vatican's ability to remain relatively immune from legal consequences due to its status as a sovereign state further complicates efforts to bring full transparency and accountability to its financial operations. This episode is emblematic of the challenges the Vatican faces in balancing its spiritual responsibilities with the temptations of temporal power. It serves as an ongoing reminder of the complex interactions between faith, power, and money, and how these interactions can sometimes lead sacred institutions down dark and morally ambiguous paths. In response to the scandals that have tarnished its reputation over the years, the Vatican has implemented a series of reforms designed to increase the transparency and accountability of its financial operations. The creation of new policies and the restructuring of its financial systems have been significant steps in the attempt to align its practices with international standards of governance and ethics. Under the leadership of Pope Francis, the Vatican has endeavored to reform institutions such as the Institute for Works of Religion, seeking to eradicate money laundering practices and ensure that its financial operations comply with global standards of financial transparency. These changes have included introducing stricter regulations, cooperating with international financial organizations, and reviewing its relations with external commercial banks. However, attempts at reform face significant internal resistance. Within the Vatican, there are factions that see these changes as a threat to their traditional power and influence. This resistance is a reflection of the tensions between the need to adapt to a world that demands transparency and the maintenance of a power structure that has been built up over centuries based on secrecy and autonomy. In addition, the Vatican has been participating more actively in global forums on issues of human rights, social justice, and environmentalism, using its influence to promote global peace and well-being. This more open and proactive approach aims not only to improve the Vatican's image, but also to reaffirm its relevance in an increasingly interconnected and complex world. These initiatives are essential not only to restore people's faith in the Vatican's integrity, but also to ensure that it remains a positive force on the world stage. However, the success of these reforms depends on their continued implementation and the Vatican's ability to balance its traditions with the demands of modern, ethical governance. The reform process is therefore not only a financial or administrative challenge, but also a fundamental test of the Vatican's ability to evolve without losing its spiritual identity. As it progresses, the question remains, Can the Vatican transform its internal structures to reflect the values it preaches, while keeping its influence and authority intact? If you're finding value in this video, please leave a like. It really makes a difference to us and helps other people discover our content. As the Vatican faces the future, it is confronted with a series of contemporary challenges that test its ability to remain relevant in a rapidly changing world. The issues range from the need for greater social inclusion and acceptance of diverse family forms to responses to global crises such as climate change and mass migration. The institution must now balance its traditional doctrines with growing demands for a more active and progressive role in world affairs. One of the most critical areas in which the Vatican is being challenged to evolve is in the acceptance and recognition of LGBTQ+ rights. While there are signs of openness and dialogue, as demonstrated by Pope Francis' more welcoming statements, there are still significant barriers within the doctrine and community that prevent more substantial change. In addition, today's youth, especially in highly secularized regions, are increasingly distant from the traditional precepts of the Church, challenging the Vatican to find new forms of communication and engagement. Responding to this alienation is not only a question of communication strategy, but also of revising and possibly adapting the Church's teachings to be more relevant to contemporary concerns and lifestyles. Financially, the Vatican continues to face scrutiny over the management of its vast resources. The financial reforms initiated are far from complete, and full transparency is still a goal to be achieved. The balance between maintaining the confidentiality necessary for an institution of its nature and meeting modern expectations of openness and financial accountability is a delicate one. On the global stage, the Vatican's role as a mediator in international conflicts and as a moral voice in global debates is more crucial than ever. With increasing geopolitical tensions and the urgency of sustainable solutions to environmental problems, the world looks to the Vatican not only as a spiritual authority, but as a leader capable of uniting different factions for the common good. As the Vatican navigates these challenges, the fundamental question is whether it will be able to turn internal and external pressures into opportunities for rejuvenation and reaffirmation of its relevance. Will the age-old institution be able to adapt effectively to the demands of the 21st century, while maintaining the essence of its teachings and the loyalty of its followers? The Vatican's future trajectory is not only important for Catholics, it has implications for the balance of cultural, moral, and spiritual power around the world. As such, the institution remains a fascinating case study of the interplay between tradition and modernity, between isolation and global influence. As the world becomes increasingly interconnected, the Vatican has expanded its involvement in intercultural and interreligious dialogue, recognizing the importance of building bridges between different faiths and cultures. This approach is crucial not only for world peace, but also for the Vatican's continued relevance in a diverse global society. Under the leadership of Pope Francis, the Vatican has promoted significant initiatives to dialogue with other religions and Christian denominations, seeking to find common ground on ethical, moral, and social issues. This openness to dialogue has resulted in historic moments, such as meetings with leaders of Islamic, Jewish, and even non-theistic faiths, in an effort to promote mutual understanding and respect. A notable example of this new approach was the signing of the document on human fraternity in 2019, a joint declaration with the Sunni Imam of Al-Azhar, which calls for peace between nations and between religions. This document is not just symbolic, but an active commitment to combat extremism born of religious fanaticism, offering a platform for cooperation in humanitarian and educational projects. However, while these efforts are applauded by many, they also face criticism from more conservative sectors within the Catholic Church itself, who see these openings as a dilution of traditional doctrines. The challenge for the Vatican is how to engage in this dialogue without compromising the core principles of Catholicism, while maintaining a delicate balance between tradition and the need to adapt to an evolving global context. In addition to religious dialogue, the Vatican has also actively participated in debates on global issues such as migration, poverty, and climate change. Through its various commissions and representations at the UN, the Vatican has an active voice in formulating policies that transcend religious boundaries, seeking to influence decisions that have direct impacts on the vulnerable and disadvantaged around the world. This growing involvement in global and interfaith issues illustrates a transformation in the Vatican's role, from a dogma-centered authority to an active participant in humanity's great debates. The challenge remains as to how this millennia-old institution can continue to be a moral and spiritual leader without getting lost in political controversies or compromising its doctrinal foundations. As the Vatican tackles these complex issues, it remains a central figure in promoting a global dialogue that respects cultural and religious diversity, while seeking solutions to some of the most pressing problems of our time. This role is essential to ensure that the Vatican not only survives, but thrives in a world that increasingly values inclusion and intercultural understanding. As we explore the various facets of the Vatican, from its global influence to its internal challenges, it becomes clear that this ancient institution is at a pivotal point in its history. The Vatican is adapting, trying to balance its traditions with the demands of a modern world that calls for transparency, inclusion, and open dialogue. As the Vatican continues to shape its policies and practices, the support and involvement of people from all over the world is essential. Whether it's participating in debates, becoming informed about its actions, or reflecting on the impact of its decisions, each of us has a role to play in promoting a more just and compassionate society. Thank you for following this video to the end. If you found value in the information shared, please consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications for more content like this. Your interaction is crucial for us to continue exploring and discussing issues that affect us all globally. Leave a comment below about your views and what else you'd like to see discussed here. Together, we can make a difference.